High. Hope you're well. Hope you're slow. Hope you're lazy. Hope you're gravy. Those new supermarkets that opened across the street. It's like a shopping center. So I went on a little adventure to check it out, get some food. So this is one of the items I bought. These crinkle cut potato chips. It says deep cut here, crinkle cut, the rigid. What flavor is this? Butter chicken? Is that actual chicken in this though? They didn't have like a chicken flavor. It had like, I got a lot of herbs. Fungus, spice. It's not spicy. It's not spicy, but it's okay. It's okay. But it was a nice little experience going out. I got a bunch of things. I also got I should have saved some for the video. Got these granadilla flavored ice lollies. Still got nice one. Still got that smell. They're okay. Though these watermelon gummies, so these are like gummies. They're like, it says ice lollies here. They weren't actual ice lollies. At the description it says sugar-coated fruit flavored jelly and foam lollies. So they're like little gummies with a bit of foam. Foam meaning kind of like the marshmallow texture. Not actual foam, liquid form. And then it's got like a taste barometer here. That's what they've labeled it, taste barometer. So it's got a scale from like soft to firm. Like you see it's in the middle here. So yeah, I guess that kind of, it was kind of firm though. It is chewy. You have to chew a little, but I don't know if I put it at the middle. I've had like very soft candy before, like very soft gummies. I don't know what would be on the upper end of firm though, because like how much more firm can you get before it's like you're hurting your jaw? We have these, do y'all have wine gums where you're from? We have wine gums. I'm sure wine gums aren't like a South African invention, but they're pretty popular here. Those are pretty firm. Those require some chewing. So yeah, I got this. I got like this macaroni and cheese microwave meal. It doesn't sound great, but Woolworths is really good at the microwavable meals. They use high quality ingredients. You just pop in the microwave and you have a meal. It was decent. My mom had bought sausage. She bought this chili sausage that she grilled. So I cut that up and put it in the mac and cheese. Well, the mac and cheese had like bacon and some other stuff. Yeah, that chili sausage on top of that. It's pretty decent. kind of affordable too. One thing about the West that kind of bugs me out is how expensive everything is over there. I think the biggest shock that foreigners might get if they move to other countries. So if you were to example the countries that I acted, you'd find that your money stretches a lot further. So I haven't even complained about the prices here, but the prices here do not compare to the things I see in the US. For example, when I see how much y'all pay for McDonald's in the US, I'm like, oh my god. Like what you pay for the burger, we pay for like the whole meal. I saw like some of the items would be like cost like $7, $8. You could get an extra large meal. Yeah, you can get an extra large. Where's that going? On YouTube, the currency conversion thing. There's $8 and but $8. How much is $8? 153. Yeah, for sure. You can get an extra large meal at McDonald's. $150 for a tray. Yeah. And in the States, it looks like $8. What's $8 you can get? No. So, sometimes I'm like, why do people move to South Africa? I don't get it. I think that's one of the reasons is like the cost of living. It's like they're willing to put up with everything else because of the cost of living. The money just stretches further. So if you're someone who earns in dollars, you might be like, whatever issues there are in this country, I'll deal with it. Because you can cushion yourself because your money just stretches further. So, when you got money, almost any place in the world is very livable when you have money. Almost any place. Some countries are just cooked. I mean, it's sad, but some countries are just cooked. But most countries, I feel like if you have money, you can live pretty well. South Africa's a pretty decent country. It's not nearly as bad as the media these days makes it think. There's all sorts of stuff going on. The news. So, it's a different story than when you actually live with it. Yeah. Pretty decent country. Has issues though. But yeah, don't we all. But there are people that move here. Some move to Cape Town. There are a lot of foreigners in Cape Town. But there's other places too. Cape Town is like, but people are moving out of Cape Town. I think it's getting kind of crowded. It's getting very expensive, and the foreigners are driving up the price as well because they own a lot of like the expensive real estate there. Yeah. So people are just like, nah. So they're leaving. Everything is getting expensive in Cape Town. So people are just like, wow. But there's plenty of places to go that are quiet. You're not going to have any crime. And you have a good time. But, yeah. The political environment in this country is kind of unstable, I guess. It's not like the US. It's not as bad as the US. So I think you get some relief if you're someone who's just fed up with the politics in the US. I think you don't like the division. I mean, there's division here in South Africa, but I don't think it's as bad as the US. Yeah, it's not. It gets heated, but the US is unbelievable. The US is in a league of its own. Hold on. Another thing I wanted to get is this. I did get it. Is this lychee soda? It's non-alcoholic. It was cool. It was nice. I like lychee. I like lychee flavored things. Lychee is pretty delicious. It's very delicious. So, drank this with my anyway. Yeah, the uses and abuse. I still wanna eventually move to the US. I have my concerns sometimes. I have my concerns, but it's more so when I say I have my concerns, I do think about like how I would like to just go to like I do plan on migrating regardless. I don't think I'm gonna be in South Africa for much longer. And when I think about settling down in another country, it would be nice to go to a country where I don't have to think about politics, which is silly because I tend to think about politics a lot regardless. Like without prompts, without being prompted to. But there's a part of me that's just like, maybe it'll be good for me to move to a place where I can just focus on work and just zone in, focus on family, that sort of stuff. There's a part of me that like that, and I think it's possible to do that in the US as well. But yeah, it might be easier in other places. But the US has so many things going for it. So it just makes sense as a place people want to migrate to. Just makes a lot of sense. And I have a lot of faith, I have a lot of confidence in the US economy. I know things are kind of crazy right now. People are just like all this economic instability, the sky is falling. I think when the dust clears, when the storm clears, I think people will be very surprised. I have a lot of confidence that things will be like a year from now, because these things take time when you talk about sorting out an economy, putting the economic policies bearing their fruits, these visions manifesting, the plans starting to make sense. When you talk about stuff like that, it takes a while. It takes longer because people want instant results. They want instant results, like change things and change them now. That's not how it works. So they have to think about the economy as a slow-moving ship. It's a humongous ship. The U.S. economy is the biggest economy in the world. And to make changes, to make any changes to a country of that level, of that magnitude, yeah, you have to understand. Some things take time. Some of these things, you can get them, but you can get them done relatively quickly. But when you're talking about just improving overall cost of living, just making the economy better for everyone, that takes some time. Some things I do think will be implemented rather quickly, but I would say a year from now, what are we in? We're in April. I think maybe by the end of the year, maybe January. This is not an arbitrary number that I'm just throwing out of my ass. I've just been following a lot of news and reading and watching people discuss these topics. And a lot of people seem to agree that, there are a lot of economists, people who study this stuff for a living. You've got the doomsayers, the naysayers, the people that are like, it's over, oh my gosh, this country's cooked. You got people who are saying that, for sure. But I don't trust them, because all these people tend to be wrong about a lot of things. A lot of them their predictions are always off. So you don't really trust them. They were the ones that are saying, for example, a lot of these people that are like calling doom and gloom in the US economy, last year they were saying that the economy is doing great. In your imagination, if you're struggling, if you think the economy is not doing great, it's because it's a mental thing. That's what they were saying. They were saying that there's no inflation, everything's fine, don't worry. Crime is down, all that sort of stuff. They were saying all of that. So these are the same people that are now saying the economy is about to collapse. So it's like, you don't have credibility. I like to follow people who are accurate, who get things right. Their predictions tends to be correct. And those are the ones I trust. When they're saying that, guys, a lot of market indicators that this instability will even out, and then there'll be, even right now, inflation is sinking. It's dropping. These things fluctuate depending on certain market conditions, but inflation's going down. For the first time since 2021, I believe, yeah, for the first time since 2021. It went down to levels not seen since 2021, I believe is what the report was. And I believe it was CNN reporting it, so they're not just saying that. They would never give the current administration any credit if they can help it. So when they're saying it, you know that, yeah. Something's working. So I think people just need to be patient, man. So that's why when I say I want to move to the US, I'm moving with the idea that things will be good. By the time I'm ready to move, I think things will be. I need to get in quick though, because what you could end up seeing is a bunch of people trying to get in, and it makes it harder. Legally, of course. So maybe this is like, you know what it's like? It's like when stocks drop and the stocks are low, no one wants to buy the stocks. It's like, oh, the stocks are low. But like what's the common phrase in the stock market is buy the dip. You buy the dip. So when a stock crashes, maybe not crash, but when it sinks, you buy that. You buy at this very low level because it'll probably rise, depending on what it is, of course. But when we're talking about the U.S. economy, yeah. There's some people that are like, I'm not going to the U.S. Look at its current state, and its stocks are low right now. Maybe from a global perspective, people are like, oh. So for people who are shrewd, who are like really looking 10 steps ahead, they might be like, this is a perfect opportunity to get in. Because if in the probable event that things start booming, it would be harder to get in at that point. So you get in and people are just kind of like, things are not looking good. But yeah, I have confidence. That should give people hope, man. That should not make people angry. I think there's some like US neighbors that are rooting against their own country, their own economy. Like, if you realize if your economy can't be your fault too, guys. People shouldn't get upset at me for saying that I think the US economy will turn out great. That should give you hope. It's like, you should hope that it does, because that's your future. Don't root against your own well-being. That's another level of derangement. That's not good. Yeah. In the meantime, I'll just keep grinding. Yesterday I wrote a chapter segment. I wrapped up the chapter I've been working on. Oh my gosh, this chapter segment is like, how long is it? I mean, the whole chapter is it's more than 10,000 words. Okay, let's check it out. Let's see. Google Docs. How many words? There's like a part of this document that's not actual story. It was just like planning. I do my planning and the actual writing in the same document, which isn't isn't the neatest way to do things. Okay, so this little segment, like, not that many words, so I'll just subtract that from the word count. So what is the overall word count? It's about 10,700 words. 10,700 words. 10,700 words, which is such a long chapter. But the way I do it, I split it up into segments, so this chapter breaks. So if you're reading the book, it's not gonna be like a 10,000 chapters. It's just one long chapter. It's like these breaks. I signify the breaks with these asterisks. I put the asterisks together in the middle of the page. So when the chapter segment is done, in the center, beneath it, I put these 3 little asterisks. And that represents a chapter break, and many authors do this. I didn't come up with that, but I've seen several people do that. So, yeah, that's how you can digest these chapters. So even if it's a long chapter, it's split into segments. You can read one chapter segment and then come back, read another one, and come back, read another one. You complete the chapter that way. I just like to, so with these chapters, they tend to follow a particular character's perspective. So this one was following Lila's perspective and what she's going through. And yeah, I don't like to jump around to different perspectives in a chapter. Well, unless they're related to each other, unless they directly influence each other and all this sort of thing. So, one chapter might have several characters that I'm following. In the case of this chapter, that was the case. But they tend to be on the same journey, like it is related. The little character arcs are related to each other, they influence each other, all that stuff directly. So that's how I've kind of structured these chapters. And the next chapter will be following these other set of characters here doing their own thing over there, and so on and so forth. How I like to think of my chapters also, like when I'm kind of planning a novel, very minimum, like it was like the planning is like 180 words, like very minimal planning. But I like to create a cost, like, so who's the cost of the chapter? Like, it's okay, say, this character, and they're starring in this, and who's the main role, who's the star, who's the lead. I'll say, okay, this character's the lead, they're the star of the show, that's how I structure my chapter. That's how I like to think of them. So I'll write that stuff down. Just so I just remember certain important details, remember. There's this channel I watch. What is it, like Subway Takes or whatnot? It's like in New York, in New York Subway, and this guy has interviews in the subway, just interviews regular people, and like each passenger just give a hot take, like that they think is unusual or it's a hot take or whatever, and they just talk about it. And it's like YouTube shorts, so it's like usually like a minute or something. And it's pretty funny. Some interesting takes sometimes. And I like the New York vibe. I think New York is a cool place. I'd like to visit. I don't know if it's like somewhere you'd wanna like be long term, but it looks like it'd be a cool place to visit, spend some time in, and move on. It's been very hectic. It seems very like dense, and I can see it being kind of asphyxiating for some people, for sure. I think some people like more open environments, not as much concrete and industry, just, that's why people might move to like Florida or Texas or Anyway, just a bunch of states. Tennessee. I don't know where I'd settle down, to be honest. I guess my mind is just kind of like, I like Texas, to be honest. I feel like because just purely because of the Texas barbecue. Guys, I watch videos of people just eating Texas barbecue, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, bro, I need to try that. And there's also like the Mexican food as well. It's pretty popular in Texas, so I want to give that a shot. And also, it's really, the humongous gaming scene in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas. It's very liberal. I'm not a fan of that. I think I'll go a bit crazy. Well, I live in Johannesburg, which is it's also quite liberal, so I don't know. Maybe I'll be okay. Maybe I'll be okay in Austin, Texas. It's got a very well established gaming scene there, so I'd like to I'd like to buy a studio someday and get a small group of people together and make video games. And I feel like it's easy to do in a place where there's already an industry established there, and you can just network. Like when you go out to these events, whatnot, you can meet talent, you can meet people you can hire, all that sort of stuff. There's a bunch. There's like two. It's really three. Yeah. So it was Austin. It was Houston. Was it Houston? I think Houston as well has a decently sized gaming scene, and so there's like companies who settle down there and employ people who work in the industry, all that sort of stuff. They make games in those cities. So I think it's Austin, it's Houston, and there's another one. Okay. It's not Dallas. I don't think it's Dallas. I forgot. Texas is a decent scene. Obviously, California has the biggest scene, but I don't know if I want to stay in California, to be honest. The tax is number one. Just think about that. So if you were to start a business in California, oh my god, the amount of money you're going to be paying for the real estate, you get the office, and who knows what you're going to be paying in your rents, and then the taxes that come with whatever you're doing with your business, and then your personal taxes will all be crazy. Then you have to worry about crime, and you know, I'm not trying to deal with the stuff that tends to come with this in California. So on the one hand, it has that pull factor of having so much of the industry there, but on the other hand, you're like, do I value my sanity? But some people are doing well in California, so you know. I'm sure it's one of those things where it's like, maybe it's not as bad as you would expect when you get there. Because I do think sometimes the media just has a way of making places seem like so much worse than they actually are, which keeps people away. But, oh man, there's just some hard stats that you can't deny. When it comes to stuff like taxes, when it comes to stuff like cost of living, when it comes to, I think that stuff is very real. You know, some other elements of how woke it is and how insane the environment is, some things you might be seeing on the day-to-day, that might be overblown, that might be exaggerated, so it might not be it might, you know, I'm sure it is very woke, but I'm sure, like, you know, like, if you hang around the right places and stay away from certain places, I'm sure you'll never really encounter much of that stuff. And I'm sure people will be normal, for the most part at least. But yeah, I just think about cost of living mostly. I'm not trying to deal with all that. And you know, but part of me is concerned when I hear about the crime rates and all these other things. I've never, thank God, I've never been in any sort of dangerous situation where I've been mugged or anything like that. So I value safety. I want to carry on that trend of just having a safe life. So I wouldn't want to put myself in a dangerous environment for vibes, because it's the place to be. That's where all the vibes are. I'm like, no, I don't want to be where the vibes are. I want to be where the safety is. Where I can just, you know, the guys, there's so much peace that you get when you just know that I'm in a safe society. I can just move around and do my thing. I don't have to worry. I don't have to look over my shoulders. I don't have to be like, oh. I live in a neighborhood where it's very safe. There's security that patrols. When you're just walking and you're just out and about, you don't have to worry about anything. There are other parts of the city where that's not the case, of course. So I do think about stuff like that when I think about California. I don't know if I'd ever live in California. Not the way it is right now. Especially just because of like the regulation, the taxes, and it's very unattractive. Just for that alone. These are things you have to think about. If you want to start a business, if you want to really put your roots in, the regulation and the tax, the cost of living is it's a bit much. A bit much. I want to homeschool my kids as well. My understanding is that California, you are allowed to homeschool, but you just have to jump through more hoops. There are other parts like Texas, for example, of like very minimal regulation when it comes to homeschooling. You can let your kids do what you want, you know? Which is the vibe I miss with. I'm not trying to answer to anyone when it comes to how I raise my children. It's provided I'm not doing anything illegal. Homeschooling should not be illegal. It's crazy. You should be able to school your children, educate them, and so yeah. Florida. I was pretty into Florida. The thing is, I just realized last year was like, yo, these people be getting hit by hurricanes, man. Not everyone in Florida, of course. Because of where it's situated, like, there's this constant threat of natural disasters. It's like at the bottom of the country, but like, it's like this little, like juts out into the ocean, and when you look at the maps, the weather maps, and you see the cyclones moving or the hurricanes, right, it's like it like goes right across Florida. You're like, nah, I don't want to be caught up in that. It's like right in the path of the storm. Whereas like the other parts of the country that are like more north, they're chilling, man. They're like, what the fuck? I'm pretty sure Texas gets hit in some parts as well by some of these things. Not as much. I think the further north you move, the more liberal it gets, and the more you're going to be paying in taxes and all these other things. So the South just seems more practical, easygoing. But the North has its charms. It has its charms, but yeah. My sister, again, well, I'm praying for her visa that it gets. She's gonna apply very soon. She made a silly mistake. She was supposed to have a meeting, a visa interview, like. Actually, I think she was supposed to have one this past week. But she made a mistake when she was filling in the form, so that the meeting had to be rescheduled. So I think she's gonna come in May. She's gonna come in May. She's supposed to leave in August, so she needs to hurry up. So if her visa gets accepted, she will be moving to Michigan for studying. She's getting a master's in something IT related. Yeah, she'll start working there and eventually set up her life there, I guess. Yeah, for me, I just view that as a way to spend some time in the US. I can live with her for at least like a few months or whatever, and then see. I don't know anything about Michigan, to be honest, except that Detroit is there, but I don't know much beyond that. I don't know much beyond that. What's the food scene like in, is it sugar? Is there sugar from here? What's the food scene like in Michigan? I should look that up. I'd like to live in a state that has a good food culture. I'm very fascinated by American food culture because it's like a bunch of things. It's very interesting things. So I'd love to try that out. For sure. But yeah, the US is definitely attractive. I wanted to get into details about the economic stuff, but sometimes people will just be like, oh my god, oh my. And I don't want to get too into some of that stuff because some people might think it's getting too political. Because I really do have opinions on some of these tariffs and all this other stuff, and the economic implications. I think people are just panicking and not really taking it in. Because I also think it's the media's fault. The media is just banking on people's ignorance and they're exaggerating a lot of things and making people very scared. But when you analyze the motivations behind the tariffs and all this other stuff and the potential implications, I think there's more of a likelihood of things working out, especially considering that America is the biggest market in the world. I think sometimes you kind of underestimate how big of a market America is. They're the biggest consumers in the world, which means they consume everyone's product. So a lot of countries around the world rely on America to sell their goods. Many, many countries. America is their biggest customer. So if America was to say today that you're banned from our market, you're not allowed to sell to us anymore, many countries would tank. It'll plug up their economy. So, you could say, okay, let's just start trading with other markets then screw the US. But other markets, the American consumers, so the average person in America who consumes products, they earn more than people in other countries. So what you'd find is, let's say you want to start selling in China, even though China is a much bigger population, like 1.4 billion versus America's 400 something million. So China has 1 billion more people. You think that China is a better market to sell. Well, they don't earn as much as Americans. So all of a sudden your goods aren't selling well in China despite its massive population. Your goods aren't selling. There's no market like the American market, man. You want to sell this, the best one. It's the biggest one. It's the richest country in the history of the world. It's not even close. You want to sell in the richest country, the doll. You want to sell in the richest country in the history of the world. You want to sell your products there. So when people hear that we're going to get banned in the American market, they panic. So I think you're seeing a lot of news stuff saying, everyone's just going to abandon the American. They're not. These people are wrong about everything, man. They're just wrong. If you've actually been following these networks that report this news, and you look at their market predictions over the past decade or so, beyond that even, whether it's their political predictions or economic predictions, they're just wrong about everything. I don't know how people still have jobs. People fall for it. People that consume the news, they keep falling for it. It's just crazy. But put a note on this video. And then come back to it a year from now and tell me how the economy is doing. I have confidence that the American economy is going to be doing better than it has in a very, very long time. Possibly ever. I'm not just saying that. When you're analyzing the plan, what the plan actually is. So, okay, I guess we can go, we're here. We might as well get into it. Why am I like this, man? I'm trying to have easygoing videos. You're not talking about things that piss people off. But I always felt. So people will make the claim that tariffs are inflationary. That it's gonna it's not true. Like tariffs don't cause inflation. If you understand what inflation is, you know that it's a silly claim, because tariffs themselves don't cause inflation. Inflation is what happens with inflation is the money supply goes up, and then you need more money to buy less and less things. That's essentially what inflation is: too much money chasing too few goods. And what would happen is with inflation, things get expensive over time. A tariff is a one-time cost. Okay, you put this tariff on us, we're going to increase our price by this much. But then it doesn't keep going up unless you increase the tariffs over years. So year over year, unless you do that, then that's the only time it will keep increasing. But tariffs usually it's a one-time increase, and then you get used to that, and then that's what you're paying from now onwards. Inflation is different because it's exponential. But that, by the way, it doesn't have to be the case that your prices go up because of tariffs. It is a potential consequence, but it could actually, the cost could be absorbed in other ways so that prices remain competitive. It depends on the business and how it's structured. Because with tariffs, the way you make your product hasn't changed. So your costs haven't changed. Also, it's just now when you get to the American ports or whatever, and there you're paying this extra charge. So they might be ways for companies to eat those costs in other ways to keep their prices low for customers so that they remain competitive in the market. So it's not always the case that your prices will increase because of tariffs. The news won't tell you that though. But regardless, I think the reason, they've said this, current administration, the Trump administration has said, part of the goal of this is to bring back local jobs, domestic labor. So by making it cheaper to produce in the US versus like China, for example, because of the high tariffs in China, it'll encourage people to produce locally, to set up factories locally, all this sort of stuff. And Trump is introducing tax breaks and whatnot, like various economic incentives to allow people to build here. They want to build industry here because I saw Theo Vaughn, he's a comedian. He's a comedian who tours. He does a lot of tours across America. And he was saying he's been to 200 plus of America's biggest cities. And he's saying a lot of these places empty. Not much going on, not much industry because all the jobs have been shipped to China. Think about it. If you're a business and you realize that it's cheaper to set up a factory in China than it is to set up a factory in your own country, you'll set up the factory in China, but then you're depriving people in your own town of jobs because you're prioritizing cheap labor. So a big goal of this whole thing is to bring back these jobs. People talk about all the potential costs and how that's going to go wrong and whatnot. That has to be done because if the risk keeps on happening, America's going to get hollowed out even more. It's not sustainable. Eventually, the country will collapse because you're the biggest consumer, but you don't produce much. Not enough compared to other countries that do. You consume, but you don't produce nearly enough. So much of your products are manufactured outside. Your military equipment is manufactured by your enemy. China manufactures U.S. military equipment. You know how insane that is? It's a big war. America constantly got to build our own tanks and whatever. Like, there's a lot that America won't be able to build because it's all made in China. And you can't trust something that's made in China during wartime. It's crazy. So it's a serious problem. Like, you're really not in a good position. Biggest consumers in the world, which has its benefits, but you need to balance that between production as well. So the idea is we bring back production. We have this blue collar boom because factories are coming back and men can work in the factories and in all these different industries as blue collar workers. So people who have a high school education, you don't even go to university, for example, you can start getting into these lines of work and they will pay very well. Some of these blue collar workers, like electricians, plumbers, some craftsmen, whatever, they earn 6 figures, some of them. It's possible, very possible to earn 6 figures in that line of work. It's not seen as cool or like desirable because it's hard work and it's manual labor, it's very hard manual labor, so some people think it's not that glamorous, but it pays really well. You can earn 6 figures. So you're gonna see a blue collar boom if all this goes according to plan. And also, it's tariffs on They a minimum 10% tariff in a lot of these countries. 10%. So these countries will be paying these tariffs because before what was happening is that the US had to pay tariffs to get into the markets of these countries, but they didn't have to pay tariffs to get into America's market, which is the biggest market in the whole world. So they were getting in for free. For free. Most of them nothing, paying nothing, just doing business. So Trump's whole argument is that why are we allowing this? Like we have to pay to do business in Europe, and we pay our part, and no one pays to get into our markets. Like that's not fair. So that was his whole argument with this whole thing. It's about fairness. So I think pretty much all these countries are going to pay a minimum of 10% going forward. They were paying nothing. Think about that. Many of them are paying nothing. So when you have a minimum of 10% to get in, that increases revenue. That's revenue you're getting via these taxes. And again, they'll pay it. Don't listen to the media, man. Oh, they're going to be poor. They're going to stop doing business. First of all, why is it okay that they can tax America, but America can't tax them? That doesn't make any sense. So these tariffs, like, why is it okay that your country can have 30%, 40%, 50% tariff? 60%, 70%, like, but then you can't tariff them at all. That's crazy. So John was just saying, yeah, the games are over. You're gonna be paying us as well. And what that will do is increase revenues, and that's new money that's coming in. And there's plans to use that money to reduce taxes. So the American taxpayer will start paying less taxes because their taxes are being subsidized by these tariffs. So that'll be a consequence because it's new revenue coming in. Trump was talking about potentially abolishing tax for people earning under 100 and something thousand. If you're earning less than a certain amount of money, you might not have to pay taxes at all. That is a very ambitious plan, but it's the stated goal of these tariffs. People should support that. People should be behind that. If this works out the way it's supposed to, this could be good. You should want that to work out. You're gonna root against it because it's Trump's idea. I don't, therefore everything he does must fail. It's like, don't be an idiot. He's your president. If you fail, you fail. You're so dumb, bro. Rooting against their own future. You should want him to succeed. Because it will be good news for you and your family and your friends. Think about your family, people you love in your life. You want them to struggle. You should pray that it works. You shouldn't hate someone so much that you're willing to burn it all just to see that person fail. That's insane. That's so brilliant. So yeah, that minimum tariff rate will guarantee revenue into the country. And there's another angle about this that I wanted to explore, but now I'm forgetting what it was. Maybe it'll come to me at some point. But yeah, the biggest problem in all of this is China. China is the biggest problem because they're America's biggest seller. America buys its products the most from China. China sells the most to America. So China had a trade surplus of like 400 something billion. And 300 something billion was... It all came from America. So America is China's biggest customer by far. It's not even close. By far. So China needs it. We should keep this in mind, guys. When you hear all these news people talking about how China is going to do this and China is going to do that. If America says today to China, you're banned from our markets, China is caught. Again, think about what I just said to you. So let's be accurate. So let's say how much of China's overall trade surplus came from the USA. Also in 2024. So I was looking at, so okay, so I guess in the whole 24, maybe I was looking at a more smaller time period, because the smaller time period was like 400 something billion. This one is like in 2024 is 992 billion trade surplus. The US trade deficit with China was 294 billion, which represents the portion of China's trade surplus attributed to the US. This means about 29.8%. So you need to think of all the people. So every there's a bunch of countries around the world doing with China. So we'll say, is this the biggest chunk? How do I phrase this? Okay, so I'll say, does this make America China's biggest customer? Why did I phrase it? The United States is China's largest customer for exports. In 2024, the U.S. imported $524 billion worth of goods from China, accounting for 14.7% of China's total exports. So it's shipping all over the world, China is. But by far the most it ships to. Okay, does anyone come close to this number? Does anyone come close to US's consumption of Chinese products? Chinese products. No single country comes close to the United States consumption of Chinese products. In 2024, the U.S. imported $524 billion worth of goods from China, representing 14.7% of China's total exports. The next largest individual markets are Hong Kong, which is $289 billion, and Japan, $151 billion. Yeah, it's not even close, man. It's not even close. So second place and third place combined don't match to the US in terms of how much it buys. Even the European Union, so Europe as a continent is 513 billion. As a continent, damn it, 513 billion. The European Union, let me say European Union, so maybe not Europe as a continent. Not every European country is in the Union. But the European Union spends less money on Chinese products than the US. So the US is China's biggest customer. They don't want to lose that. That will affect them deeply. It's hard to overstate how bad that would be. So just keep that in mind when you hear people talking about how China's going to do this and China's going to do that. If America pulls the plug on China, it will be very hard for America as well, because they rely so much on China. But that's why they're trying to bring things back. So China needs to pump the brakes, because if America becomes independent, it'll be a long day for China. They're going to have to figure things out. So, America owes a lot of the bargaining chips here. With a lot of these countries, because a lot of them want to get access to American markets to sell goods. American consumers who consume the most in the world is not even close. These countries will just take a massive hit. Like, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to China? No. You can try the EU, I guess, but it's just not as booming of a market. Businesses will be very upset with their countries if they're just forced to sell to these inferior markets. It's just the accurate way to put it. Inferior markets. They're just going to make less money. So I think these negotiations will work out. I mean, there's already this 90-day pause. The tariffs have remained on China. People are saying, Trump caved. How's he caving if it's 145% on China? How's that caving? How's it caving when there's 10% tariffs on all these countries now when there were no tariffs before? How's that caving? These countries will pay these tariffs. They will pay the tariffs. Or pay nothing. Some of them. Some of them will pay. A lot of them won't. depending on the negotiations that were had. And look, so let's say you're not paying tariffs, it's reciprocal 0%, 0%, but you're opening up access to the markets, because a lot of businesses have complained about how hard it is to do business in Europe. So if you're an American farmer, for example, they've been complaining for a long time how difficult it is to sell their products in Europe. They're basically not allowed because of all this red tape, all this regulation, all these regulations. The cows have to produce milk and this, and they make it hard. Not because they just have high standards, but they're trying to make it difficult for you to get your products into their countries, so that they don't have competition with the U.S. They don't want to compete with U.S. farmers. So they'll say U.S. beef is not healthy, even though it's naturally grown and all. So if you have a U.S. farmer who grows his cow, who nurtures his cows and grows them in very sustainable, very healthy ways. This is like healthy beef, and he wants to sell it in the European market. They'll say, "Oh, but your beef doesn't meet our standards," even though it does. So, even if these countries aren't paying tariffs, so farmers, as an example, are now selling in these countries, and they're making more money. So revenue is still going up for the average person regardless, because these new markets are opening up that weren't open before. They essentially were not open for many people, because there's so many hoops they have to jump through to just make it impractical to sell at some of these places. So I think this is going to have a very positive effect. But there's turbulence now, because of course there's when you're challenging the status quo, when you're making these massive realignments, yeah, things are going to shake up a little bit. There'll be a bit of instability, but it'll settle and things will be good. So it's going to be a bumpy ride, man. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but I think ultimately it'll work out. I have a lot of confidence that it'll work out. I could be wrong, but we'll see. I'm betting that it'll be good. So that's why I want to get in as soon as possible before things. Wow! And then everyone's trying to rush in because the economy is doing better than it ever has. So yeah, you want to bank on people being silly and overreactive, and then being like, let's not go to the US anymore. It'll give you an opportunity to capitalize on it. There's always the chance that you're wrong and you go in there and then you get in and the country collapses and you're stuck. There's always that chance as well. But yeah, unlikely. It's impossible to know for sure, but I think it's unlikely. We'll see, man. But yeah, people need to stop rooting against their own country. It's a very idiotic thing to do. If not for yourself, root for the future of your family, your friends, your children, and so on and so forth. Like, root for their futures. So even if you're like, I don't care. I don't care if I crash and burn with this damn economy, and maybe you should care if the people you love crash and burn. How about that? But yeah, when you have a severe case of what we call Trump-Reagan syndrome, people, they lose all reason, they lose all principles. It's just about Trump must fail. No matter what, he must fail, which is so silly, man. There's so much I wanted to get into, but it's like I'm just drawing a blank. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about tariffs and all these other things, we could talk about AI and how AI is going to fill in a lot of these gaps. For example, another angle of this whole thing, and they've said this publicly, part of the reason why they want to bring back some of these jobs is because, the whole appeal of China is that you can produce very cheaply in China, because costs are very low for production. Because they have slave labor. They've got people working in these sweatshops and whatnot, being paid almost nothing, if anything. And that's why it's so cheap to produce in China. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. What AI will allow for is, so if when those jobs come back, they might not be taken by humans, some of these jobs, some of them. They will still be blue-collar jobs, and there will still be a blue-collar boom. but it won't be in the way people think. So there'll be a lot of people building factories as an example. Some of these factories are going to be massive. It'll take years to build, and then they'll need maintenance. So you're going to have blue-collar workers working on factory maintenance. And, certain parts of the industry will still need blue-collar workers. So there'll be blue-collar workers working in various parts of the industry, but when it comes to production, when it comes to the process within the factories, the idea is you bring AI into that robots, and they bring the cost basically to zero. So China can bring the cost of production to very low, to very small margins. AI can bring it to zero, and it's not slave labor, it's robots. So there's no moral dilemma there. You're not putting people in sweatshops. So AI will solve that problem, and that's the kind of part of the plan. And what that will do is AI brings costs to zero, labor costs to zero, which brings down the cost of the product, which makes it more competitive. And then they can become a producer like China is. And if they can produce at the level like China produces, China will be in serious trouble. But do you know how much money America will make from that if they become a manufacturing powerhouse? They're not right now. They're just consumers. The American economy is a consumer economy right now. Not much production. In terms of global trade, like exports, American exports. So it's a consumer economy. If they can become a producer economy and become a manufacturer on the level of China, while also maintaining its consumer status, oh my god. I think we'll see an economic boom unlike anything we've ever seen before. I think it'll be genuinely crazy. It'll feel almost unreal. So when you talk about things like taxes being abolished, it doesn't sound real. It sounds like so far-fetched because you've been living with taxes your whole life and you just think it's inevitable to pay taxes out of your damn ass. I think it could be very well be the case that that's some good possibility. We'll see. I'm optimistic, man. I really am. I'm analyzing the plan. I'm like, this plan just makes sense. I don't know if people are freaking out. This plan makes so much sense to me. The way things structured. And when you see countries like Japan saying, okay, we're going to send our dignitaries, we're going to send a delegation to negotiate with you, bring these tariffs down, Oh, everyone's caving. Many people are flying to the U.S. Many countries are sending delegations to the U.S. to negotiate. It's a good sign. And it means that the U.S., particularly India, China, South Korea, Vietnam, countries like that, they're all making agreements with the U.S., which means China is surrounded by people who are choosing the U.S. over them, which is a bad thing for China. And you have to understand, China's not popular in the markets either. China does a lot of IP theft. So here's the thing people don't realize about China. Because everything's being made in China, all these countries are producing in China. They're very cheap to produce it because of the slave labor. They can steal your IP. So let's say you've got this factory where you're making products. So I got this light here, for example. Let's say you create this thing, this light. It's very bright. It has all this cool, nifty stuff. It's got chargers. You can charge your laptop. You can do all sorts of things with it, right? You see here it says made in China. Right here it says made in China. Let's say that this was initially a European. This was someone in Sweden, for example, who made this. It's called Magneto. There's someone in Sweden that came up with this idea, and they're building this in their factory, and it was a very popular product. They're selling millions of dollars worth of this product. But once the Chinese government sees that this is doing very well, you know what they do? They send people in to steal your IP, your patents. They don't steal your patents, they steal the technology, and they make a much cheaper version of this product. And then now you're seeing your product being sold on Alibaba and all these other websites. You're like, huh? Someone just made a knockoff version of your product. That's how it happens, guys. Do you wonder why there's so many knockoffs and knockoffs just emerge like this? Because China doesn't obey any trade laws. They just blatantly steal people's IP. and sell knockoffs of their products. And this is happening to pretty much every country that does business with China. People are fed up. So this is why this narrative that all these countries are going to turn on the US and turn towards China, it's like, guys, it's not going to happen. I mean, it might. It's unlikely. Because there's so many problems that come with dealing with China. They just keep taking advantage of the trade part. They're very bad trade part, which is why you're seeing a lot of divestment from China. People were investing in China heavily in prior decades. But you're seeing investment leaving China in record numbers. People are just like, nah, we're going to try. Apple, for example, still manufactures in China, but was it last year or the year before? Is it, nah, we're opening a factory in India as well, so that we can split up our production. Because splitting, like producing in China only has proved to be, in some ways, a liability. So we want to split it up so that we have some manufacturing going on in India. Y'all are not playing fair. A lot of IP theft, a lot of unnecessary charges and tactics, and favoring domestic Chinese companies. Not so, like in imports and whatnot. Like Chinese companies get preference. It's not a fair system. So there's incentive to align with the US more than you would with China, because China is not this warm, fuzzy trade partner that can say, oh, come to us since the US is charging you all these tariffs. Come to us and we treat you better. No. China's been scamming people for a long time. So they're not an attractive trade partner. So, I just keep this in mind when you hear news, people professing doom and gloom. America's over. We've lost our allies. We're gonna go broke. Guys, it's just hysteria. They're trying to scare you. And you have to understand, a lot of these news networks are tied to the stock market. The stock market, in many ways, does not benefit from what's going on right now, which is why you see a lot of all of a sudden pro-stock market propaganda, which is that it doesn't benefit you as the average citizen. The stock market, what goes on in the stock market. That's not what you should be focusing on, is the health of the stock market necessarily. You should be focusing on you and your own pocket. Like, how does this benefit you, not how does it benefit the stock market necessarily. I think everyone will benefit. I think the stock market will see temporary dips. It'll go up, it'll go down, it'll go up, it'll go down. I think ultimately things will settle and everyone will benefit. But don't look at the stock market as an indication of how you're going to be doing in the future. People have different interests too. They make money in different ways. If jobs are being brought back to the country, and all these different businesses are opening up, and you're getting access to different markets that you didn't have access to before, that's going to benefit you. It might not benefit them for various reasons. You might be upset about that, but it'll benefit you. So just understand that these news networks, a lot of them, have direct ties to the stock market, which is why they might be pushing certain propaganda. But anyway, and your stock. Let me know if you're in the comments, man. I took the everything negative to follow about it. There's individual actions on that. Things can hold you can down the phone first. You can bless this person. Wonderful people in our life. We love them, take care of them, bring us the best out of them. Thank you for maintaining them. I'm going to there to do this. Thank you for blessing this person. But love and knowledge and sustain the love and knowledge and making you very, very happy. Thank you for blessing this person with the spirit of gratitude so that you can give thanks all along for things in life and give thanks and find peace, contentment, and attract even more blessings. Let your presence be felt in this person. Thanks to anoint your God, let your let your love them. And yours will be there for them. Good health, long life, and happiness will be with them so everyone can write. In my name, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen, 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 amen.